This time I'll call to order the York County Council Workshop for August 27th, 2026 to order. The first item on our workshop agenda is to have general discussion regarding ED incentives, ED fund policies, and the status of our current projects. And just for purposes of kind of opening this up, one of the issues that council all collectively said they were interested in looking at is how do we find ways to improve this process? How do we find out what council will support, and how do we give some direction and revisit these issues as we move forward and go about doing that. I know that there was some comments that I think are, Mitch, that you wanted to provide as the director. Is that something y'all want to lead with?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Yeah, we're prepared to start the conversation, and we're really excited about this evening and the opportunity to hear from everybody. And I think, you know, Mitch has some slides that will set the table, and then we have some questions at the end that we think if y'all share your answers to the questions, it will really help us better understand where each of y'all are and give us the opportunity to improve processes and delivery. So with that, I'm going to hand off to our Economic Development Director, Mitch Miller.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Council, for being here tonight. It's good to see you. Very informal. I would ask that if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Won't be offended. Don't have to go line by line on here, but I do think it would be a little beneficial on our end to kind of set the stage, but also hear directly from you on feedback as we look to move forward. So just moving, as we look at economic development, I think it's good to kind of get a glimpse into our eyes of how we look at things, but also to think the community to see how we look at things and ultimately try to evaluate opportunities. And so I know we talked back in 2024 and 2025, we did a workshop where we talked about targeted impacts. And through that, kind of the intent was, what do we want York County to look like in 10 to 20 years? And what are some things that are important to you all, and where can we find a line of sight where something, you know, there may be some similarities between Councilman Huckabee and Councilman Atkins, and find synergy to really say, these are the 5, 6 priorities we really want to focus on. So I go back to opportunity, and really, as we look at it, and as we've talked about it with you all, why economic development matters is we're all trying to find good jobs and career opportunities for people in York County. That's the primary concern in anything that we do when we evaluate a project. With that too, really looking at tax base, we try to look at investments that help support services and infrastructure needs. Obviously, growth is going to happen with or without economic development, but I do think there's an opportunity that we can help guide with purpose what we go after and what we look at to bring here to York County. And at the end of the day, really trying to improve the overall quality of life. I've been here since 2024. I know some things have happened in the past before that obviously that I hear about at council meetings, but my priority, our team's priority has really been, what do we want to focus on where not only businesses can thrive here, but people can thrive here. And so we've tried to be truly intentional with everything that we bring forward to each and every one of you all here with council. So I talk about growth happening with or without us. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. It can be reactive, and to some degree we have to be. We are the 2nd largest county in York County, in the Charlotte region here in York County. We have over 300,000 people that call York County home, and it's probably going to grow. I think the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance did a report looking at the next 20 years, and you're probably going to see an addition of 150,000 people plus to York County. There's not much I can do to stop that. I think just in general, Charlotte is a very desirable market, and there's a lot of positives, even beyond here, that cause people to want to come here. With that, we're going to have a strain of housing demand, and how do we impact that? How do we deal with things like traffic? I came from Fort Mill. I know all about it. Debbie, Tom, I know that y'all live in that area as well, and y'all deal with it every day. And then coming down Celanese, going by where Tommy is at, it's tough. It's very, very tough to get down here and get through this county at times. The service demand's tied to it, the infrastructure pressure, that's all going to happen because of population growth. I think the thing when we look at projects, we're really trying to be intentional with what we pursue. We go back to Octapharma. A lot could have went on that site. I think it's a project that ultimately brings high quality jobs, is going to be a positive in terms of tax impact for York County and really is going to fit into the fold really nicely here in York County with where we're trying to go over the next 10, 20 years. It's going to allow quality jobs, higher wages. It gives us the ability to possibly look at how do we look at investing in businesses like small businesses because of the revenue that can be generated from it, diversifies our tax base. I think if we were to have a focus and not really have a plan of action of being intentional and letting growth happen, you would probably see a lot more distribution centers lined up I-77. So trying to be intentional where we can and really focus on diversifying our tax base. And then I go back to those targeted impacts that I mentioned to you all. So as we evaluate projects, this is how our staff looks at it. Before I ever bring anything to you all, this is how we really look at each and every project. Does it create a quality job here in York County? We're looking at things above the median wage of York County, trying to find a quality job that really fits and is going to allow opportunities for citizens here to grow. Does it fit our community? Is it something that we truly want? Is it going to bring a positive impact, not a negative impact to its neighbors? What resources is it going to consume? Now, we talk about some of the water challenges we have, electric grids, impact, things like that. Is it going to strengthen our tax base in a positive way? What's the infrastructure required and what's it going to cost us long-term? And ultimately, how are our citizens going to receive benefits from a company coming here to this community? Again, I can't control what has happened in the past, but we can focus on trying to make things better moving forward here in the future, and that's really how we're looking at it. And so I think it's good to kind of understand that and then really look at the tools that we have and the current structure. So from a simplistic standpoint, the incentive structure is really how it helps us go after the right types of business. A FILO essentially is going to reduce the assessment percentage. As it stands right now, if a commercial or industrial development comes in here to this community, you're looking at 10.5%. This allows an opportunity to reduce that cost and be more competitive with North Carolina or other communities like Georgia, Virginia, and get at a 6 or a 4% assessment ratio depending on the investment. Special source revenue credit allows really the opportunity to reduce additional tax burden on the company. That's if something that we really see as value, like an Octapharma type project coming in, that we can be more competitive and try to get a higher quality project and jobs here for the community. And then lastly, FILO revenue, it's looking how revenue is distributed. Essentially, we look at like the ED fund, taking 10% off the top that could go back into a pool to help support more projects, or if there was something to look to support schools, support municipalities, support the county, however you want to divide that up, you have control over that as council. Speaking about the Economic Development Fund, I thought it would be beneficial to really kind of see where we stand to date and get a glimpse into that fund. I think the last estimate that I had on our fund balance in the ED fund is about $5.6 million as it stands today. I may be off on some change on there, but it's roughly a little over $5 million. What we see in net annual positive growth in there, our Economic Development Department is funded there, but we still see a net growth of about $300,000 annually. And so after our department is funded, you still have some addition in, as it currently stands, of about $300,000 per year. QTS was a FILO project. That's a pretty significant investment of about $1 billion. We anticipate when that comes online in 2028 and then scales out and gets built out over the next 5-ish years, you're probably going to see that ED fund actually produce about 1.3 to 2.2 million in revenue above the ED operations annually. So you're going to see that fund increase significantly, probably starting in 2028, 2029. Again, the primary use for that fund right now as it stands is for our ED department. We have used some funds there to support some chamber workforce-related initiatives, but beyond that, not really been used for anything specifically. So I say all that to kind of finish on this part and leave you all with some questions that I think would give us some guidance as y'all deliberate and get into discussion tonight. What we want as a county, I think that was the intent when we went back in 2024 and 2025 and did a workshop. We came out with targeted impacts like higher wage projects were a priority for each of you all. You wanted to see more community vision and investment together, really looking at some of our allies to say, what are we working towards? Small business support was a key priority. I think the ED committee heard a lot of what was going on the small business support side. We've hired a deputy director with a primary focus on small business support with Eduardo. And I feel like we're making good inroads to really supporting small businesses, much more than we ever have in the past. Workforce development, and lastly, enhanced mobility and quality of life. Debbie, I remember that was a priority of yours, talking about the Greenway, End Springs Greenway being really an anchor point for York County, and how do we have better connectivity with trails throughout the community. And so trying to look at opportunities to partner with End Springs Greenway, the Carolina Thread Trail, and beyond. I think the tools to get there, DLOs and SSRCs are really a tool. They're going to help us go after those higher wage projects. It's going to generate opportunity for the ED fund. I think more than anything, just getting some clarity and focus on what are some key projects that you all really agree upon that you want us to go after is really important, and we can push that way. We've talked about mobility with Carolina Thread Trail and had a great meeting with them today and the chair of our Economic Development Board. We've had workshops with small businesses. Eduardo did a great job hosting a workshop in Fort Mill last week, and we've done those in York, Rock Hill. We're going to do one in Lake Wiley coming up in September. Clover's already had one. Definitely want to do more to incorporate the unincorporated small businesses around York County as well. And then lastly, just focusing on some of our allies. I talk about quality of life and ways that we can support those initiatives. So I think the ED fund can be an engine to do some of those things. Just getting clarity and understanding about what's important to council so we can align those efforts. And I think that direction really kind of listed it up at 4 questions, I think helps us as a staff, and happy to talk through these in more detail with each of you all. But what outcomes do you all want to see that we need to prioritize? If it's more focused on small business, if it's on ag, on quality of life, certainly understand, and we can continue to design some efforts around that. What factors should determine the level of support for incentives? If you want to focus more on wages over job creation, that's something that we can continue to intensify as we look to work with businesses. Should there be some guardrails that guide incentive discussions and decisions? I think hearing that from you all tonight and taking notes as well. And then lastly, I think probably the most important of that, because you've got a resource with the ED fund, what do you want to see that go towards to support? I'm all for that we be good stewards of money, but you're going to have quite a bit of money that's going to start to generate in that fund, and I think you've got a great opportunity to influence growth the way that you want to see that happen through that fund.
Do you know what the historical idea or why the ED fund was implemented?
I wasn't here during that time. My guess was probably to support economic development efforts. It could have been for site acquisition. It could have been for infrastructure.
You weren't left any documents or any direction on what that fund was created for,
We have a resolution where I guess it was established, and it was a development fund.
but that was it.
Yeah. Teresa, I know you're here. You may have some history with that.
So Mitch,
So the two, just so I'll make sure that we answer the questions and go through this appropriately, there's two issues here to hear from council. One is, how do we go about,
This is
I wonder what happened with that.
This is only a test.
Can you
Yeah,
figure out
y'all
what it
the
was?
ones that like trusting this technology, not me.
I don't think it's me.
yeah, tell him
Did
to
you
give
mess
us,
with the
tell him to give
button
us a cell
again,
phone.
Just sitting here minding my own business.
So to me, we have two issues. One, that I appreciate the questions that y'all put up, and I do appreciate, Mitch, a lot of the issues that we are hearing, that we're getting public feedback from, deal with projects that were brought before you were here. And so there has been a change at the helm, and how do we, number one, how can we improve the process? And number two, where do we want to invest the ED funds, or how do we want to do that? To me, I think those are the two main issues that we're here for. And I'm happy to let y'all start, and I can share my comments after that. So
Okay, sounds good, thanks, Chris. So first of all, Mitch, thank you for what you had shown us here, and we appreciate your hard work, so thank you. Couple things, you know, when I look at the ED and the ED group and the opportunities, I also look at the opportunities of us supporting small business, okay? Small business is at a deficit when it comes to, you know, challenges they face in South Carolina just because of Act 388.
Sure.
So again, when Act 388 came out, there was obviously the offset when they created fee in lieu and abatement and some of these other things. The challenge is that these small businesses don't qualify for most all or any of these. So the ED fund and the opportunity from the ED Economic Development Board, I think coincides with a great opportunity here. I think what we need to look at is how can we structure, and with the help of the ED board, how can we structure an opportunity to create programs or incentives, et cetera. And again, I'm not going to spell them out tonight, but how we can support small business and help to fill that gap. And again, we talked about some of that stuff when you guys did the survey, whether it's marketing, okay? You know, whether it is SME or entrepreneurship, you know, mentoring, whatever it may be. But I think this is a great opportunity and a great task that we could bring back to the ED board and have them, with their knowledge, bring back some proposals to us. The second point I want to make on this thing is that when we look at, in general, you know, the needs of our community, we also look at the concerns of infrastructure, right? So as we bring in these businesses, et cetera, I think one of the biggest challenges we face from a county perspective is our roads. You know, the impact of our C funds that are being impacted by a lot of these intersection on the interstates, et cetera, that we have to, again, contribute more to. It really becomes a challenge for us to support our roads. So I think when we look at the mechanisms under a fee in lieu agreement, we've got to make sure that we're covering our needs, especially things such as roads and infrastructure, water, projects that are out there that, again, are going to be a catalyst. If we don't have the roads and infrastructure, we're not going to bring in the businesses. So we really got to make sure that we're taking care of our needs from a county perspective, you know, as we look at this mechanism for, you know, distribution. So those are a couple of my broad points. I'm going to turn it over to the next person, whoever wants to speak next.
I'll jump in. One thing that I thought we was going to kind of help cover also was how do we improve the process of this council going through these fee and lieu agreements. Recently, we heard X was working on a project for 2-3 years. Well, that got dropped on council, basically the full council, like 30 days before we were voting on it. And we kind of took some heat saying, like, this project's been worked on for almost 2 years, but we only got it as a council. Maybe it was in a committee that was privy to it, but the full council got this agreement, this proposal, this whatever. I'm saying 30 days, and correct me if I'm wrong, 30 days before we were taking first reading on it. And so that kind of puts us at a disadvantage of knowing all the ins and out innuendos when we're looking to do something different. Because had we known 6 months ago, we had this major project coming through, wheels could have been turning different before it was made public, that this thing is sitting in our lap. I think that's one thing, and obviously you can't divulge too much too soon, but when we have something coming down the pipe, I think it'll be beneficial to all of us to at least know it's coming. Another thing I like to see happen is we start to shape up and give you some directive as to how far, how much, when to pull, when should you pull back? You know, the full money shouldn't be on the table for every company. And when I say the full money, that means cutting everybody's taxes in half, 50% across the board. You know, sometimes it may take that. In times when it doesn't or can lend itself to do less, we need to start looking at those avenues that allows certain entities to give up a little less. Obviously, we do have that 10% that go into the Economic Development Fund. If it calls for one entity to give up less and we take less to shift some of that money to help make these fee and lieu work, that's definitely an option. And I'll be blunt, I'm talking about the biggest pot of money on the table is obviously our school district pot of money. You know, coming in, looking at giving up 50% of that each and every deal, I think we need to get away from that being a guaranteed portion. Now, if it's a deal that can't survive without going that far, then we have to do it if we really want the deal. But I think we've said it, and this county knows it, and this council knows it. We are a hotbed because of our proximity to an international airport, the interstate, so we don't have to always look to give up as much as we've been giving up because, let's face it, people want to be here. From our educational opportunities, from our proximity to the airports, interstates, beaches, mountains, quality of life. You know, some other areas may have to give it up, give it all up to get companies, but I don't think we're in this boat. We're a prime location, and obviously, just because a company researches and wants to be here, doesn't mean we have to give it all up to get them. Let's start out as, I don't want to say lowball and lose to anybody, but you've been doing this a long time. You know and use your best judgment, but I think this council needs to kind of set some parameters or some workarounds that kind of structured from the start. And if you have to go over certain limitations, then that comes to council early on and we know about it. Say, hey, I don't think we can make this fly at these levels. We're gonna have to go above whatever those percentages that we potentially come up with. And you may have to use it, you may not have to use it. But that was kind of my thinking for tonight. And I do remember in the past, I think it maybe was over in Fort Mill when Daimler was up in Fort Mill. I think we did give some ED funds to improve some road situations out front. I think that was one of the things that we've used ED money for way back when. I can't recall one recently, but those are the type of things that, hey, this company's coming, they need some help making some road improvements. Obviously, we can't dump tens of millions of dollars, but we can chip in if it's a A-cell lane or D-cell lane that has to go out, they need some help with it. Some of those are some of the things to use the ED fund for. And obviously, paying to run the economic development department, salaries, travel expenses, and you know everything that goes into that part. We can't just totally cut off not taking the 10%. If we're looking to shift some monies around, we don't always have to have the 10%. We can shift some of that to help make the deal fly and take less from some other entities that are involved. So that was kind of my thought process. And I'll say when we're talking about doing deals that require a less give up, maybe this light should have went off 2016, 2017 when we first started hearing about school impact fees. Because I can assure you, if we would have given up a lot less, going back to when we first got the Fort Mill impact fees, if the light would have went off then, we probably could have scaled back some of these deals and put more money towards the schools. And maybe we wouldn't have every school district, well, we wouldn't have 3 school districts coming for impact fees, you know, but hindsight's 20/20. But I think now's the time to talk about how do we start to be better stewards of the pot of money that we're dealt to be in charge of. And if our school districts are screaming and kicking about facilities and every capital project, capital need. So that's kind of what really sparked me to drop what I was going to be doing tonight and make this meeting, because it's important that if we're going to have a good, strong community and county, it starts with our schools. It starts with job recruitment. It starts with economic development. And they're not competing entities. They shouldn't be having to compete for the dollars. Everybody can coexist. The schools can coexist and get what they need. These deals can get a fair amount of what they need. And if it takes the county taking a little bigger haircut, if it takes a municipality takes a bigger haircut, all those cards have to be on the table. And no 2 deals probably are gonna look the same at the end of the day. We should have that flexibility to personally craft something that fits what we're bringing here. And jobs are important, wages are important, tax base is important, all of it. I don't want to put one above the other, but they all are on the table when we're looking to try to take care of so many different pieces of this puzzle.
I'll follow up on that. And, you know, we definitely need to give you some more definitive guidance. I assume that's what the ED committee's for. They should be making those decisions. They should know what council's, you know, ideas are and what council kind of wants. So if our committee doesn't know what we want, then maybe we should reevaluate how we're handling that, so that the ED committee, because I know had been working on some of these deals. I know they work on these deals way ahead of, you know, the full council getting to see them. So we should empower them to be able to make these decisions, or to know what guardrails we want. As for the way that we distribute the funds, there is no chance I would ever agree to taking more of the county's money to give to the school district. I was elected to represent the county, to support the county, to do everything for the county. The school district can go find their own funding if they need it. I will give them the, you know, I think it's fair to take the same percentage deduction from everybody. But if you want to advocate on the account of another entity, maybe that should be the entity that you're representing.
I wouldn't think it that way. I wouldn't think it that way.
And so, I'm not supporting that. You know, we can all take the same. If we need to give up 3%, everybody's gonna give up 3%. The ED fund, I could give up, you know, if there's 10%, when we get up above 500 million or $1 billion projects, you know, I could see letting some of that money go to other things, not necessarily have to be 10% to the ED fund every time. You know, I don't see a point in funding the ED fund if we're not going to use it to do some ED projects. I'd like to see some responses or some projects come from staff and the ED department of what we could get a good ROI on and what could we use to really help our community. I agree that we should fix some roads and stuff, but if we can get more businesses here through, I don't know, I know the International Road or International Way over in Aspen Park, you know, they asked for some money to fix that road and extend it over to Heckle. You know, that would open up some additional space for more businesses. If we can get them in here, you know, I would prefer for the businesses coming in to extend that road, but if we could extend it, if you think that that would be, you know, reasonable and could get us a return, you know, I'm for that. But I don't think we should just be sitting on it. You know, that's definitely not fair to the other communities. You know, if we're just gonna sit on it and take 10% off the top, maybe we should use that and split it among all the other agencies and we all get the same overall percentage. But I think we definitely need some levels. I think we should look at lower, you know, like I said, for small businesses, if we can get down to the, I don't know, start at 2.5 million or whatever the lowest area we can get to. There are plenty of places around here, plenty of small businesses that could use as much help as possible for those things. So let's help them out. Let's, you know, set some different levels of the projects and how our funding is working on those. You know, and I agree. If we can get by with taking less of a haircut, you know, overall, if we can get 90% of the tax revenue instead of 80%, I'm all about starting with that too. And you know, to pile on what should get support. You know, I think tax base and jobs, well-paying jobs. We don't need, while we do need entry-level jobs, you know, we got to have not every job can be an executive. You know, our students can't just leave straight out of high school or straight out of college and go take an executive job. We need places for them to start, but we also need, you know, get as much upper as we can get.
I don't want to make this a rebuttal situation.
Yeah, let's not do
I-
that.
I'm
Let's
not-
let
I don't-
council members
I
go
don't-
first. Well, let's let everybody go
Can I-
through first. Mr. Atkins?
Which naturally, y'all know I'm gonna be different than everybody else. But I do see it a little bit different though, Andy, because the county's not an entity by itself. Those people and those kids are the county. And so that there, and the county's not an entity by itself. It's made up of the people. I've even made the statements before with the municipalities that they sit inside the county. These schools are inside the county, but they are our county's schools. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I think there's a lot that needs to be fixed on the schools in different levels. I think that we need to put the brakes on because we ain't got the infrastructure for what's already here. I also think if we're gonna do fee and lose, which, and a lot of times I feel that they ain't nothing but making some entities richer, I also would like to see the fact that if we say we're gonna create jobs for York County, are we creating jobs for York County, or are we bringing 700 other people in here that ain't originally from York County? We ain't changing nothing when we do that. I think that whenever businesses and all come in here, that they should handle the burden of all the infrastructure and all that stuff when it does. I mean, I see it a lot of different ways. I mean, everybody up here, they no secret, they know that I'm the one that rates about preservation and all. But I will not sell my humanity for a dang dollar, thinking a dollar is everything that matters. Because the way I see it right now, the American people could tighten their belt, and the municipalities and the county could too. You ain't gotta have the best of everything. We got serious water and sewer issues. We got serious road issues. We continue to sit up here and add more, never fixing the pot that's already got a hole in the bottom of it. Which that's my opinion, but,
Okay. You done?
yeah, I'm done. Well, not really, but I'm stopped.
You better say it now, you may not get to come back.
There'll be more opportunities.
Okay, so, I questioned what the money was going to early on, when I was on council. And I was told, from economic development folks, that it was to be used when a business came in and they disrupted the land around them, maybe the roads or sidewalks were needed or something happened with like infrastructure. It was to be used for whatever that business was a disruption to and needed to be fixed and added. So it would go along with the road situation that was also somebody else brought up. That's what I was told. And it made sense to me because these businesses do come in and they tear up roads, they tear up trees, they tear up land, and they need to fix it. That's what I think. They have plenty of money, and they're getting a deal that is hard for the human mind to comprehend. And I tried to wrap my head around it, and I cannot wrap my head around it. So that's very important to me, that I think that they should be responsible for additional things. If there's a park needed nearby, I think they should put a park in. If there needs to be a daycare to help with the workers that are coming there, I think they should build a daycare. Now, the other thing that bugs me about the fee and lieu is these companies come in and they give us their grand and glorious presentation, and it's like so enticing. They're the best salespeople in the entire world, and it all looks wonderful, and you try to ask questions and you try to be diligent in your homework, and then they may start out with what they've said. But then once everybody is looking this way, then they completely change what they've come in here saying that they're gonna do. I feel like that, I don't know how the state feels, I don't know what we could do about that, but if they change their level of what they have said that they were gonna do for their fee and lieu, then I think they need to come back to council and have a discussion about what they're doing, make sure they're zoned correctly, and that there are other factors that need to be looked at so that we're not in situations that we are currently in. I think that's very important.
Thank you. Mr. Huckabee?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay.
I'd like to listen if that's okay.
No problem. So I'm going to start with a couple of things that I think are important that I agree with. First of all of our businesses, our small businesses, our existing businesses, they pay 6% or more to be here. There's very few businesses that are allowed to get this FELOs, and those FELOs oftentimes go to 4%, and oftentimes below 4%, they're paying less percentage tax than even residents are under these FELOs if SSRCs are given. What I believe is that our county is a great place to be, and I honestly think that most of our problems on this council have come from FELOs, and I think FELOs should be used very sparingly because not all businesses have access to them. It is not allowed to be used for small businesses, and picking and choosing winners is a problem. Having said that, I do understand that there's a need to look at that, and so when we look at how do we prioritize, if we're going to give FELOs, where would I personally want to see them go? It would be to businesses that raise the bar, that bring quality of life to the community, that do not have to rely on any excess use of water, utilities, road infrastructure, because if they are making that impact, those taxes are needed in order to address that impact. So I honestly think we should be very, very selective about businesses that get that, because it's not fair to all of the existing businesses. I think it should be in conjunction with what the communities, what York may need and what York is needed in terms of attracting business, maybe something different than what's over on I-77. But we should be very sparing with it, and I think we should be very selective, and honestly, I don't think we should have many of them at all. When it comes to process, some things that I've heard from our community and from folks in our area, we want increased transparency. We have already worked towards that by building into the agenda, making sure that we talk about these things publicly. But I do think that we need to learn from lessons, which includes all zoning compliance for any business that's requesting incentives or that's going to ask for incentives. I think that they need to declare their full scope of operations with legal department. I think they need to spell it out at the outset, and I think legal department needs to give the approval that they are zoned to do what they are saying they want to do. Before we have any FELO discussions ourselves, I think we all so before first reading, any adjacent property owners where there's a FELO that's going there, I think they have the right to know what is going there and to be given notice. I also believe that all of our schools, all of them, apparently some of our schools have been informed, but not all of them. I think all of our schools should be informed of any major ED initiative at the outset, before it appears on our agenda. And so I would support, right now, the schools don't have a say in any of those projects. They don't get to vote on this, and sometimes they aren't aware of it. I think there's value in them knowing, as long as it is subject to an NDA, they need to know what this business is so that they can speak into how is this going to impact our schools. Additionally, and I think as long as it's kept tight-lipped, they need to be aware of it as we move forward, because the reality is most of the money that is attracting these businesses here is money that would have gone to the schools, not to the other entities. And speaking to that, I do think that there's real merit, and I think it will require some additional discussion from council, but I do think there is real merit in looking at, we shouldn't be asking our school districts to pay $1 more than what we are willing to pay towards that business coming here. And here's the reason why, and this is why I think the schools are, they're impacted differently. Pursuant to Act 388, their operations really have only two funding sources. That's it. They have commercial property tax and they have state allocation. Whereas the counties and the cities both get residential and commercial property tax for that. You add on to that the fact that when you do a TIF or when you do a FELO, the school district has a double whammy impact, so that they are only rely on that for their operations. But what ends up happening is once you give one of these TIFs or FELO, their property tax rate reduces the amount they get from the state. So it's a double impact to them because of how it is appraised at the state level. Additionally, the cities and municipalities, they have revenue sources that the schools don't. They have revenue from A-tax, H-tax, licenses, sales of the property. They also have utility. So how it is not the same to say, hey, you're getting the same percentage. We really need to be looking at dollars, and I support us looking at how do we protect our schools and how do we ensure that they're informed so that we have a good result at the end. I do think that there is definitely merit in us looking at that because they are treated very differently and have very different options. I wholeheartedly support the idea that we use some of the ED funds that we have to look at small business. Some of the ideas that you guys brought to the committee 2 days ago, the rest of the council hasn't had an opportunity to see that. My understanding from what was presented is that $75,000 would go a long way to helping put up some projects that would help be available to all. The only concern I have is making sure that we are looking at our unincorporated businesses as well as our incorporated, and that we're making sure that everyone's on a level playing field as we use that. I especially like the idea that we would use those funds to help marketing, to help market, shop local, shop in York County. Those kind of things I think are important. So I support that. I think council should definitely give some guardrails, because if we are going to ask our ED board to look at how do we support our small businesses, we do need to give some funding parameters there. I think you can't just send it off to someone and then they come up with ideas that council's not willing to fund. So I think having a cap on this is where the council is prepared to send that, I think we need to talk about that. And Mitch, I'm gonna rely on you to kind of circle back to the extent that there's majority. At the end of the day, this council, I mean, the question of, do we send these questions to the ED committee of, all right, are we going to change how we do or how much money we're going to give to incentives to the committee? Well, that's the whole point of us being up here. We have got to make sure that at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to have to pass it. We're the ones that look at the community when they come here and want to know, why are you giving this money to this business? How is that going to impact us? How is that going to help us? And so we have to be comfortable. We have to have an understanding of what the majority of this council is going to agree with at the outset before, so that the committee is operating in a fashion that we can get to a place that we need to get to. And I think We definitely need to have a discussion that includes folks like Growth Partners and our schools and our municipalities to identify what are those target businesses that we're going to go after and get an understanding at the outset of what are these priorities and how can we be on the same page from the beginning going forward. I'm trying to look through my notes. As I get old, I have to keep myself on track and make sure that I cover the things that I want to cover. When it comes to, let me make sure I hit these. I also think we, as part of our process, and maybe this would be a great opportunity for the ED board as well, we do comparisons, and we basically say, okay, we want to give this philo incentive to this company because they could go to Charlotte and get a different tax rate. I think we really need to vet that. We don't need to sell ourselves short. We don't need to give the farm away. I think when we're looking at a company that says, hey, I'm going to come here and I'm going to be on 25 acres of prime land in Rock Hill that's on the interstate, the value of that property alone is going to be probably 5 times more in Charlotte. And so we really need to be making sure we're looking at apples to apples and don't sell ourselves short when we do that. So I think doing an analysis on how we are really comparing those things so that we are not giving that away. I personally want to make sure I'm clear that I do not support philos for future data centers, warehouse distribution, or any industries that require a tremendous amount of our resources, including electricity, water, and anything that impacts our road infrastructure. So I think those are areas where I have concern, and I've seen that I think that we should take some very strong approaches. Let's see, I know I'm talking a lot, but I want to get all my stuff out because I'm sure we'll have more discussion. I think that when it comes to how are we going to spend our funds, the ED funds, first of all, everybody understands this ED fund means you're taking funds that would go somewhere else. I mean, like, this money would go to the fire departments. This money would go to the schools. This money would go for other things. So if we're going to use this, I think it should be something that is a benefit for our community. Clearly, the first thing we have to do is pay for the cost of the department. Like I said before, I do support a portion of this going to look at and explore small businesses. I think that we should be looking at not ways to give more money away to businesses. I think we should use that money to do something good for the community, whether it's through trails, connectivity, something that helps connect the business to the community. So those are the areas where I would support that funding. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We've heard a lot of great information from council tonight, that's for sure. And I think one thing that we could possibly all agree on is that over time, things change and your priorities change. A couple of years ago, we adjusted our priorities on economic development, on the types of industries we wanted to attract to York County. Thankfully, the state adjusted their priorities, Rock Hill adjusted their priorities, and that allowed us to land Octapharma with a lot of intentional planning. So I don't think it's by mistake we're having this conversation. I think this conversation should take place, and I think more conversations will take place like this on other things we've decided on because things change. I think one part of this process that's going to be important is educating us all and the citizens on factors that we need to take into consideration as we look at the incentive deals and as we look at the ED fund. So, and I got a lot of notes here, and they're all over the place, but clearly, we have a responsibility to taxpayers to take care of our fundamental needs here in York County. We have to decide what needs are priorities. We put a strategic plan together, we set some priorities. Those may not be the priorities anymore. I mean, I'm hearing that maybe they're not, but we need to figure out what our priorities are and figure out how we're going to fund those priorities. I made a list of some priorities that I think clearly are important, but are they most important? I don't know. That's for 7 of us to decide. Roads, capital improvements, capital projects, public works, parks, trails, workforce development, workforce housing, investing in small, medium, large, and mega businesses, and there's more. That's just a short list, but what are our priorities? And the reason I ask this question is, Karen, can you pull up the PDF, York County Property Tax PDF, please? The reason I bring this up is because when you look at the revenue, when you look at how York County generates income, we're limited in how we generate income. All entities are. The school district is, our municipalities are, and so are we. So if you take a look at this comparison here, and you look at Rock Hill, Fort Mill, York, and Clover, so we're looking at the 4 school districts primarily, and you look at how we share tax revenue today, just take a look at that right quick, digest it if you haven't seen this before. And you look and see who's getting the majority of the revenue. And that's a good thing, because education is critically important. Education is important when we're looking to bring employers into the area and where they're choosing actually to call home, right? Educational quality is critically important, so funding education is a priority. But bringing these deals in is also a priority for the municipalities, because they have infrastructure requirements, they have investment they have to put in to bring these projects into York County, the ones that we want, right? The ones we talked about tonight. And I'll talk about that more in a second. And then you got York County down here, and you look at the income we generate when you're doing deals in those 4 markets, those 4 school district markets. That's the revenue we get. And guess what? We don't get all that revenue. That revenue gets split up amongst some other entities here in York County. And I won't go to that page, but maybe y'all can help me out right quick so I don't have to go to it. But Sheriff's Department, Solicitor's Department, the museum, library, who am I missing? Is that it? Is that it? Okay. So if you don't know, they get a piece of our 15.86, 11.89, 12.78, and 13.1%. They get a piece of that, and we get the rest to invest. So you can pull that down if you want to, Karen. And I'm not going to go over this other slide, because thanks for helping me on that. So when you think about the incentive agreements that we have, they were laid out for a reason. And I will say this, so I don't forget this now. I'm of the opinion that maybe for whatever we're going to deal with in the short term, we don't deviate from our traditional fee splits, whatever comes out of economic development and we vote on, agree on it, that we kind of stick to that, and let's get educated on some things before we decide to deviate from that. That would be my personal suggestion, so that we don't have any surprises and we don't go through some instances we've already been through in the past, most recent past. So I think it would be important for the Economic Development Department to educate us on what fee revenue the municipalities, and I don't know what time frame, I've got something that goes back to 2020 that I requested, and I've been digging through and going through that. But I think we need to know and understand how much fee revenue each municipality is receiving and how much fee revenue each school district is receiving. And you can look at it as FELO revenue, FELO and SSRC, or just SSRC. You decide how you want to do it. But I think we need to see this. It would be difficult to make an educated decision when we say the school districts need the money. Well, I think it would be important to know how much money they're getting now.
The only thing that, and I hesitate to interject, but I think we do need to make sure that we understand that the only businesses in industry contributes to the school district's operations.
That is
That
correct.
is only the schools, the residential
388, you're
get
right.
the complete offset. So that's really not the case across the board. This is the area where the schools have to have operational costs. That's how the state said it.
That's right.
So those numbers really aren't the same.
And that's why I think it's important for council, all of us, to see how much fee revenue is actually being generated for each municipality and each school district, and the county. I'd like to see it for the county too. I think it'd be important, because if we're talking about shifting money from the county or a municipality to the school districts, it would be important to know how it's being divvied up now. How could you make an educated decision? I can't make that decision. No.
It's 50% across the
No, what
board.
I'm saying is cumulatively, I've got it, I can show it to you, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. I think we all need to see what kind of revenue they're getting now, which they're not getting Octofarma.
I'm just saying that you
TTS.
need to also balance that with what they lose through the residential side, because the
understand.
cities and the counties, like, look at the revenue that's generated through the other routes, because when you have one entity that only gets revenue from two areas, just looking at fee revenue is only gonna be the businesses. That's the only place where the operations come from.
Right,
So that's
but-
really not a,
But they're still getting the lion's share of the revenue with a smaller budget than we have, the school districts do. But anyway, let me keep going, so that I don't tie up too much time. So I think one thing that is worth considering, and this ties into the incentives, this also ties into the ED fund. I too agree that we need to take a look at what we can do for small business. 2 years ago, we put the small business toolkit together, okay? So that's for people that want to open a business, they want to know where to go, where to get help, where to get support, so they can move faster through the process. That was a great move. Last night, we heard at our, 2 nights ago, Tuesday night, we heard at the ED meeting that there's a study going on right now that the Economic Development Department is overseeing, that is focusing on businesses that are between $1 million and $2 million in revenue, 1 to 50 employees, and 2 to 5 years in business. So they've made it out of the woods, they're generating revenue. This could be a good business to figure out how we want to support. The way I'll say this is, it seems to me that we, either the ED committee or refer it to the ED board, we put together a guide that starts with the first tier that you all have identified now, $1 to $2 million businesses. You mentioned the grant programs maybe that they could apply for. And by the way, I like the fact that Ed had said, you apply for the money after you've had this success, and then you get reimbursed from the grant. I love that. That was good, because I've been thinking through, you don't want to throw good money at a bad situation. So I love that, by the way. Anyway, so when you think about the types of businesses we're bringing into York County, just in the last 3 years, we brought in our first billion-dollar businesses. I mean, I don't know if we had a business come in the last, since I've been on council, since 2023, that was over $500,000, I don't think.
$500,000 don't have to be.
$500 million, sorry, thank you, $500 million. But point is, things are changing, times are changing, industries are changing. So having this ladder, starting from small business, small, medium, large, mega businesses, wouldn't be public knowledge, by the way, this is internal for us to use as a guide, but it goes back to the comments that have been made now. When you build this ladder out, and we do have a $5 billion company come to York County one day, knocking on our door saying, we'd like to build an advanced manufacturing chip company or something, I don't know, but those companies are out there and they're landing in other states right now. What would you consider giving up when you take into consideration the quality of the jobs, the wages, the overall tax impact, what area in the county they're going into? Now, why do I say that? What area of the county? Because when you begin to look at this fee revenue, you're going to see that there's certain districts in this county that don't get much fee revenue because they're not on I-77. They're not near a major four-lane thoroughfare to get the business to them, the types of businesses, or maybe they don't have the land. But for whatever reason, certain areas could use some specific targeted support. But we take that into consideration. Your community involvement that promotes quality of life. I mean, community involvement, investment back into our community, giving dollars away. I think these are touch points that I think are important when you begin to evaluate these larger companies to see who do you want to give incentives to come here. Because let's face it, our tax rate's 10.5%, your next drop 6%, and the next is 4%. If you're not aware, North Carolina's rate is sub 4%. Is that right, Mitch? 3.5%, and it's slated to go to 3, I believe I read, and it's going to continue to drop until it's 0, is my understanding.
I mean, they're pretty competitive on attracting business.
The last 6 fee deals that we've looked at here in York County, we have Connecticut, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and California competing for those companies to go to those states. And so you'd have to look at what the tax structure, the corporate tax structure is in those areas to know whether you even have a shot at bringing them in here. So even when we take a deal to 4%, North Carolina's still more aggressive than we are without doing anything from their base rate. So it gets kind of complicated, and you do have to figure out how you play the game. But if we create this ladder, I believe then you have a standard, and as you begin to work forward, bringing companies in, you go and you revise the ladder based on what you feel like, what deal you can potentially get. Another action item I believe that we should do, we have nine municipalities here in York County. For those, there's really not much economic development going on in those areas, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be. Maybe they want a little bit. Maybe they want a few $10 million companies. I don't know what they want because I haven't had a conversation with them. But I think we need to go out and we, either Economic Development Department, the ED committee, and them, maybe the board too, but we ought to go out and sit down with the 9 municipalities, the 4 school districts. And I think there's an opportunity to determine where we have overlap. Where are the priorities for York County? Where are the priorities for the municipalities? Where are the priorities for the school districts? And we might find that we have some overlap and some common needs. Trails, I don't know what they might be, but some of us, I actually researched this, and some of the municipalities do have strategic plans, and some of all 4 school districts have strategic plans. So where is there overlap? Now, why am I saying this? Because, just my opinion, I don't know this to be true, but what if, in the future, the municipalities are questioning us about our 10% ED fund contribution from a fee in lieu? We gave away $41 million to the Rock Hill School District through our fee agreement that came out of the ED fund, would have gone into the ED fund. We gave that to the school district. So, understanding what our priorities are, maybe it's time for us to look at that piece and reassess where that money actually gets invested. And maybe we look for priorities that have a common thread between the school districts and the municipalities. And then we take the money and we invest it where it needs to be invested, because York County ultimately, think about this, and I don't know the answer to this. For every 100 people that come into York County, new people that come into York County, new jobs come to York County, I wonder how much that cost York County government, short-term, long-term. For every 100 people that come in here, what does it cost us? I think that's probably important to know, because that's a future expense for us. And where does that money come from? Well, we're generating some of that money out of the companies, these good companies, great companies we're bringing into York County. So understanding what the future impact is allows you to begin to set deferred monies aside to cover those future expenses. I think that's important. That's looking ahead, right? It's like saving money to buy a house. So I think that's important. So meeting with the municipalities, meeting with the school districts to talk about, not about how we're going to split the money up, but where do we have commonality on where we could invest where everybody benefits, right? I won't get into too many examples. I'm not going to get any examples on that, actually. But defining where York County's share of the 10% or whatever that number should be, then consider how we should invest that in the future. Let's see right quick. It was interesting, last night we learned, this kind of stuck out, but we have had 20% growth in numbers of workers, but our housing hasn't kept up with the influx of workers. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I think, workforce housing is part of the initiative that we probably ought to take a look at. I guess we are after last night, I guess. I don't know. Let me just look and see if there's anything else that I wrote down that I want to mention. I'll stop there. I may interject some more in a minute. But I want to go back to the one statement And that is, I think there's some more education for us to be had to understand where the revenue is going now, who's getting the revenue, before we could make a decision on what we ought to do from the fee in lieu and for the ED fund. I think there's work with some direction from council, there's work for staff, the ED committee, and the ED board to do to dig into this.
So here's where we are. We have all said our piece, and the question is, where is the majority, and how do we determine what the next step is? To me, the process issues need to be, well, let me just throw out some ideas. So if what we are talking about doing is referring some matters to the ED board, and again, this is the board where every member of this council has an appointee to that board. What I guess the question would be, when it comes to ED funds, is there a collective understanding about, are we supportive of small business, and are we prepared to designate a portion of that to at least give some parameters for that ED board to consider where that funding goes?
I would like to know what they think about, get some suggestions to come from the board.
Okay.
For
So
us to consider.
Yeah.
using
does
it.
anybody object to that?
No.
Maybe that's a better question.
Suggestions on just general suggestions, or
Yeah, well-
suggestions about the small business?
The small business part.
The small
Let's start
business.
small.
Well, what were you asking for?
Say, have the ED board formulate some suggestions to us, for us to approve, not for them to approve, but send us some suggestions. And we
Right.
say, yeah, this is some good use for these monies that are being set aside.
Right, I think they should come back with recommendations. They come back with recommendations, then we can filter them and bring them back up, and we can talk through it. I agree. Yep.
I think maybe this is, I do think giving some idea of what portion of those funds we're talking about setting aside for that, instead of, because there's a difference between what you can do with $100,000 versus what you can do with $1 million of the ED fund. Do we want to talk through that, or do we just gonna want to send it generically?
I think we can make the determination on the amount.
Do what now?
I think this body can make the determination on the amount once the suggestions come back.
I think you need to build out the framework first.
Yeah, you
And
gotta-
see what the framework looks like,
Right.
and then you backdoor into potentially attaching a dollar amount to it.
Right.
And the thing is that, based on the direction we've gone in the last 5 years, there will be, and you had it in your slide, there's substantially more fee revenue potentially coming to the ED fund. But I think the thing we can't overlook is the possibility that we may not have these ED fund dollars as they've been traditionally coming in, especially considering the amount that will be coming in the future, which is why I mentioned that it may make sense to sit down. I'm all for the small business initiative and the ED board working on that, but it may make sense for us to sit down with the municipalities and know and understand if we have a common thread, and the school districts, so that we could take some of this money and invest it where it is applicable to everybody.
So I guess I need to hone in on, are we talking about referring to the ED board all of the money, or are we
No.
talking about the small business?
We can't do it.
Well, I
Okay.
think we should refer to them, to the ED board, to come up with ideations that we can evaluate. I don't. think
For
we-
small business?
For small business.
Small business,
For
all
small
right.
business,
Do-
right.
Is there anyone that objects to that? And I guess, I think what would be helpful is, if council supports that, then what we can do is refer to the ED board, consideration of the small business, and Mitch is obviously helping with that board, so you'll be able to share with them the funding and be able to share what y'all have already come up with
Yep.
as potential options. So that's one thing. And again, what I'm trying to do is glean from this council what the majority thinks and how we move this in what direction. So that's one piece that it seems like everybody agrees on. If anybody objects, I need to hear from you
I
now.
have questions.
Okay.
Okay, so, having come from the small business world, I'd like to hear what we have already done that has been successful. Have we had success stories with small businesses? And if we have, what is that success? I mean, you talking about small business, you gave a money, I think, what was it, 1 million to,
2 million is what they were looking at out of our ED committee,
and 1 employee to
50.
50. Have you already had some successes there?
I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
Well, I don't think.
Small
it-
business.
We haven't given
No,
money.
we haven't given any-
We haven't
They
given
any
ED fund money
They're
to
just,
that.
they're exploring.
What we've done, and it might be beneficial, I'm happy to have him come up and speak now, but we've done workshops around the county, and we've tried to listen to understand where do we find commonality and needs. Biggest thing that we're hearing as a common thread is marketing, visibility,
Yeah.
and increasing sales. Those are three things that ultimately
Always.
they feel like they need genuine support
Right.
on. And so
Right.
what Eduardo has done is really kind of put thought to what he's seen working in other communities, what he's heard across the board here in York County, and we're still having those meetings. I've mentioned next month we're meeting in Lake Wiley, and trying to figure out what are some programs, or at least pilot programs, that we can test and see what works. So there's things like social selling, there's things about marketing. We've done some initial numbers here, looking at marketing through Instagram, Come Shop With Me series, where we partner with Fort Mill Now to go across the entire county and highlight small businesses about what you can find in shops, just to increase foot traffic. And do that digitally, because this is the way the world is starting to shape, whether we like it or not. Just trying to get visibility there on those companies. So we have seen some success. I'd say initially that's through social media.
Right.
We need to do more, though, to increase visibility where they're learning how to sell more effectively and reach a higher customer base using our phones, because
What-
that's where it's
What I
going.
think I'm hearing Debbie say, and but maybe I'm reading too much into this, but we got the benefit, this is the ED committee, had the benefit of hearing from
Did.
the folks on the small business, and the rest of the council did not.
Right.
What they suggested as potential small business initiatives were more of programming. How do we help you with marketing? How can we do these things? And the number that was thrown out was $75,000 to look at those programs. To me, when it is a program issue, that to me is certainly something that makes sense for us for ED board to consider. And I think the harder questions are going to be, if you start giving money to small businesses, how are you going to do that? I think that's a harder question that I think council's going to be a little bit more concerned about. And because then there again, you're picking and choosing. But I think that with what y'all presented to the ED committee, and those parameters and programming that is available to all of the businesses is certainly a good start, so that we can start having them take a look at that.
I think it's definitely a good start, and I'll say this too. We've got some very talented individuals on that board. One in particular, I think, still may be in the room.
Exactly.
Tom Bloomberg, here's Dave. Thanks for being here. You know, John runs Small Business Development Center. I think he has probably the most knowledge out of anybody in this room tonight about some of those needs, and probably can guide us and direct us even more than what we know right now.
So my thinking is, why can't we do both? Why can't we, have some discussion about small business initiatives? But I think equally, potentially more important is working with the municipalities and the schools on how to, because I'm sure we're gonna have feelings come up, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe in a month from now.
Well, and I think what we're doing, Debbie, we definitely are going to do that. I think
Yeah.
the question right now is who can we refer the committee to? And I think at this point, the ED board, there's consistency on council to take a look at the small business. I think so we'll get to the question you're talking about is, are you talking about what their targets are, or how do we approach interaction with the schools and the municipalities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's another question. What, do we want to talk through how that process will,
Well, hang on, for the small businesses, we're still starting at, I've heard 1 million to 2.5 million or whatever, 5 million. We're still covering the lower people too. I mean, I've got, the one that sticks with me constantly, and I use it as an example all the time, is there's a daycare in Lake Wiley that pays $70,000 a year in property taxes for their 2 acres. A daycare.
70,000.
Yes. And they compete against daycares at churches that pay no property taxes. And so they are at extreme disadvantage in these situations. And how can we help small businesses that are in those, not just daycares, but the small businesses that are trying to run out of a small shop, and how can we help them? Maybe they can already market, but can we do tax rebates? Let the big,
Council
big
can't give
boys.
tax rebates. Council doesn't have authority to give tax rebates. It has to come through the state.
I'm sure council can come up with something,
Just,
but.
Well,
I don't want to create confusion too. We were in
We don't need to get in the weeds.
zero to 2 million is the range. So from $0 to 2 million, not 1 to 2. I don't want you to think that we've categorized this a small threshold. We're talking 0 to 2 million is our threshold. That's what we've
Okay.
started to focus on.
So I guess the question is, are we going to focus on 0 to 2 then, and not 2 to 5 and 5 to 10? And
Well, I think giving some parameters to the ED board, since that's something that y'all have already done, is an easy transition. Staff has already come up with a proposal, and that's something that they can present to the ED board and have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so look, we'll use those parameters. Let's try this out.
Mhm.
Let's get something to that
Sounds
board.
good.
Does that work?
Yeah, and I think
good
to your
start.
point, though, I think there's an avenue to look at the 2 to 5 million and et cetera. As the biggest challenge is, I think we start here, but then we'll look for opportunities to expand, because there's some other ships that can rise maybe even quicker sometimes,
Maybe 10.
if we identify those
shouldn't have,
opportunities,
not
so,
anymore.
perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Yep.
What about on the fee and lieu, the guideline structures of
So,
what
as I'm trying to,
qualifies?
yeah, I think as I'm trying to hear from everybody, where is a consensus? To me, we are still at the point where council, I mean, at the end of the day, we are still charged with making those determinations. And I'm hearing, I think we need a little bit of help, somebody going and digesting the comments that council made and maybe putting some more pointed questions to council, like, where are you on this? Are you prepared to do this? Are you prepared to do that? What's the process change? So I do think that since council has to make that decision, we probably need to can you, Mitch, take a look at the comments that all of council made, see where there's collectivity, and let's revisit kind of where we are, because the last thing we want to do is to send something to a committee where we know we don't have a majority that agrees with that, because they're going to spend their time on something and come back, and then it's just going to be a problem. So if we can do that, that'll help us move on from this topic. But does that work for y'all? And let's
Yes.
approach it that way. I think everybody.
So another workshop to go over these things again?
Well, I think also too, I think part of that is identifying, for example, what the needs of the county would be, right? When it comes to roads, infrastructure, that type of thing. I think that all plays into what you're saying here, so.
Well, I think it needs to be more targeted. Right now, we
Well,
didn't.
that's just one of the aspects.
I think right now what we need to figure out is what is council's palette for FILOs, and what are they willing, or incentives? Where is their agreement? Where is there a need to explore more discussion, and which is the best place for us to do that before we move
Because
on?
it sounds like we need more discussion on what to do with the rest of the ED money. I mean, we've got the small business, but that's as far as we've gotten.
So I'll say this, I've got 5 pages of notes, and I can rewatch this on YouTube. I think the thing that would probably be helpful is finding where there is consensus, kind of that line of sight to say that you all find some agreement. Some of the things quickly as I look through this, small business infrastructure, process, guidelines, and maybe have a touch point back with you all in the form of a survey or a conversation, then leading that into a future presentation at a council meeting or another workshop.
But that's so generic, that's not really consensus
No.
up here. I've sat through enough of these in my year and a half to know that if we don't give very specific things, we all talked about different items,
I
but
did.
there wasn't, it's not as,
I don't think the
Detailed enough.
infrastructure thing is a big part, should be a part of economic development, because we have things in place to address infrastructure. If we're talking about money that we're getting, or money we're sending out from the ED fund or fee and lieu, take the infrastructure part out of it. I don't think that's I don't think that'll be a consensus up here
I agree.
for ED money.
Well, that was not, right, and the infrastructure component wasn't baked into the ED funds. No.
because if we're going to use ED fund for that kind of stuff, I just soon
No,
roll it into
that's-
the regular
We're talking about
Millage.
we're talking about the overall amount of money that comes to the county, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not focused, and I'm not specifically saying that for the ED funds, so, yeah.
So when I brought that up, the 10% that we take, the 1% comes out on a FILO, 1% comes out, goes to, in this case, Chester County, and 10% comes to us, and then we divvy up the balance. My concern is that 10% we take out to go in the ED fund for us to use at our discretion may be challenged in the future. So anticipating that that might be the case, and we really don't have it clearly defined what we use the money for now, that's why we have $5.6 million in that account, and the last expenditure was through the last two budgets and $300,000 to the Chamber of Commerce. So that's why I said it may make sense to sit down with the municipalities and sit down with the school districts, not talk about the distribution of the money, but talk about where do we have a common thread? Where do they have priorities that happen to be our priorities? And it happens to be the same priority for the top 5 municipalities, and maybe we decide to begin to invest some money out of the ED fund for those purposes. So we redefine the purposes of the money.
Well, why do that? Why not just break up the 10%, spread it across those entities, and they can figure out their own ways, and we don't have to be all up in their business?
Well, we can't do that.
Well, you
'cause we
could, but
defund the
but
ED department.
I think the thing is, you don't know what that common thread is. I think you don't know what that common thread is and how impactful that common thread could be. I don't know either. But I know that all 4 school districts have a strategic plan. We have one, and I think one municipality does. But the others have a good idea as to where they'd like to invest money, but like us, may not have the money to invest it. So instead of the ED fund going away potentially altogether, maybe we figure out a way that the school districts and the municipalities benefit from that money as we do as well.
So,
I don't know if we want to, I think the thing that what we were trying to do here is let's identify, and instead of walking through, I mean, I wrote my notes down, so at some point, we need to decide, is there a process improvement we all agree that we want to move forward with? And if we agree with that, do we send that to a committee? Are we comfortable with sending that committee, or are we not? So
Well, I
in
think-
my head, the way I think about it, and this is why it's a little bit, I don't know that we need a whole nother workshop for this, maybe we do. Because we still have another topic that's important,
is
and we
gone.
still have another piece of this. But I am all
This is
for,
the
let's
main-
make progress. I don't know, like, for instance, what I would want to do is go through, here are the things that I suggested. Do we have 4 that agree? If not, let's kick it out, or each one of us. And maybe, what I was trying to do is defer that to Mitch and say, look, here are the items, what do y'all agree with? What do we all agree with, what do we not? Then let's talk about where we would refer it. For instance, is there an agreement for us to ensure that the school districts are known? Do we agree that all of council should be made aware of the very first time it's brought up that there's a FILO? I think all of the council should know. I agree with that. I think that was a comment that was made. Do we agree that the school district should be aware of it and be able to provide information?
Well, let's go down these, like you're doing right now.
Do we want to do that? I
Just
mean,
go
y'all
ahead.
got your things too.
I got mine, I
I
definitely want
wouldn't
to put it.
go, I mean, we do each one of them like that.
Okay, let's do that. Maybe we'll make some progress here. So in terms of the process improvements, I think that I suggested that we have all zoning compliance for any business that's requesting incentives at the outset, that they should scope out exactly what they're going to do. And before any FILO discussions are had, that what they do, it aligns with the zoning. To me, that's something that we need to do at the outset.
Do we
Do
not
y'all
already
do
do
that?
that?
No, it doesn't go through legal. It goes through,
Because
if
You
it
said,
goes
do we all
through legal-
agree?
Do we need legal to do that? Go
I
through
think
that
so.
much effort? I mean, we have one.
I think it helps.
As far as I know.
No, I think we
out
have
of
2.
30 years.
I think we have 2 that are questioning, and I just,
Do we?
We're talking about
What's the third
projects.
one?
is there,
Second one.
if we're going to argue over every one, we probably aren't going to get there
Yeah, I
very
don't
far.
think, I think this is, I
Maybe
think
we
we
move
just
on.
go with what we got.
We have a
Bring this to
list.
small biz, and let's
Y'all
go
wanna
through
have a
what we've talked
discussion?
about, and we
I
can
don't think
isolate
it's
this down
productive
to
this
a
way.
category.
Not
So-
what
And-
else we have.
and what
so-
we'll do, you know,
That's good.
I think what we
Yeah.
did is we peeled back a layer of the
That's
onion
good.
tonight, and we can look at the notes.
Let's list them
I think
out.
we heard categories. One thing I would recommend, and we're doing this with the fire survey, I think based on what we heard, potentially Mitch in Economic Development develops a survey that each of y'all can fill out individually, so we get information as we peel back the next layer of the onion. And potentially Mitch and Tom sit down with each of y'all individually to have a deeper conversation before we bring it back. Because I think if each of y'all share where you're at, that'll help Mitch make sense
Yeah.
of his notes too.
I like that idea, listing out all of the things that were mentioned and then
Yeah.
in one-on-one to get us there. I think
Yeah.
that'll help us move it along.
Yep, agreed.
All right.
So instead of giving them direction, we're gonna let them give us direction.
No, they're
No,
gonna,
Mitch gonna-
they're gonna take the direction that we just gave them.
Did we give them any direction?
I mean, I did when I've made my comments.
Yeah, I think we've all.
I think we heard direction
I
from
mean, I
each
heard
of
we
y'all.
heard
one
a lot of
direction.
direction
You
tonight.
gave.
No, you gave your
I
comments.
know, you gave direction. We each gave direction.
Yeah.
But none of the direction was a concession of all of us saying, you just said we needed to have at least a majority of
I know.
saying these are good directions.
I know
I
what
think
he's
that
doing, Andy,
the
is he's
survey
gonna
can
take
get us
all
there.
he's gonna take all of the comments from all of us. He's gonna list them out, and then he's gonna meet one-on-one with each council member to find out where everybody is on those things, so that he can understand where there's consensus and bring something back maybe a little bit more cohesively.
Yeah.
And the one thing I would say, maybe we don't wait to start setting up meetings with town councils, city councils, and y'all, and school districts. That's something you might want to begin, so we don't, because those could take time to schedule for y'all to make time in your schedules for that. So consider that as something, if you want the county council, y'all to do those meetings, or if you want to send those to committee and have the committee do that. That's something that I would say might be helpful to talk about tonight before we end.
I think, personally, I think it would be helpful for you guys to jump on all of these things that every council member has listed and to find out where there's agreement, because then we'll be able to find out where the council is first on these things before we open that
So it's
up.
basically him sending out a survey.
No, I
Some
think
survey type.
he's gonna list out all of the feedback that we've given, and he's gonna find out where the consensus is from council, so that we know how to move this
Individual
ball
meetings
forward.
and then-
So he said he was
Well,
gonna do a
that's-
survey, but you're
I
asking
think
him
the
to meet
survey's
with
a
us
lot
one-on-one.
faster
I think
than
that's what he
one-on-one meetings.
suggested.
I think a survey
You good with that?
gets it there a lot faster. If you're setting up individual meetings, that's gonna be,
If
It
you're,
could be a call.
I mean,
if you're asking
Whatever's
my,
easier.
if you're
I would
asking
do
my
survey.
opinion,
If it's
let me
yes, no.
digest the notes.
yeah.
I do think a survey helps, but I love the idea of individual conversations.
Yeah.
Tom and I can
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
calendars
I
and
agree.
coordinate that with each of y'all and
Yeah,
ask maybe
but-
10 to 20 minutes of your time.
Because you may have this, I would support a call, just because you may have questions that you want to talk about.
Yeah,
I
but the
mean,
call
it's
should
not
come after
always
the
clear
survey.
cut.
How about a call after we get the survey? Because if we have 4 or 5 people saying we interested in this topic, then that's definitely one that's gonna be covered. But if there's no overlapping, there's no way we're gonna get to a consensus on it if there's no overlapping on capping school district money. There's no overlapping on using ED money for this. If there's we'll never get there. We'll just be talking, Like,
But just
spent an
quick
hour and a half
point.
already. We got nowhere.
When we came up with the targeted
I think
impacts,
we've got-
we had a
gone
workshop, we followed up with a survey, individual conversations, and ended right back with another workshop, and you got that. I think the priority and the plan could follow a similar process, and we could find lines of sights, commonalities, things that are important to you all, and have our list.
No matter what, there'll be a consensus, and as soon as possible, we will then take that information, and council will be in charge of if we refer it to EC, the ED committee, or if we're at a place where we can refer it to the ED board. We'll have another conversation before that's done.
Throw one item in there just for the fun of it. No philos. I heard from at least a few that sounded very strong that they would be willing to not do any more philos and see how we worked out.
All right, anybody else got one thing to add before we move on?
I have a comment though, and I think this is important, quite frankly, because there is conversation.
Hour and a half.
I'm not the one doing all the talking, y'all all are doing all the talking. I'm sorry, Mr. Huckabee.
It's okay. There has been conversation of taking money from either us or the municipalities to give to the school districts. And I still believe before you can make that decision, you need to understand what our own needs are and figure out how we're going to pay for our needs before we give money away to other entities.
I don't think we're talking about taking money and giving it to anyone else. I think what we're talking about is, don't give another, if money's gonna be given away per dollar, that the school should be asked to give up more dollars than we're prepared to give up.
They get more dollars.
Well, they're
than
getting
we
more
do.
dollars.
They have limited, well, let's, that's where this is
Well,
gonna
We
be.
can start a whole nother round of hours.
I know, let's move on, y'all.
But real quick off
If they,
your-
well, no, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I gotta say something
Hang
real
on,
quick.
hang on. If there's anybody who wants to add something to the queue that Mitch is going to follow up on, now's the time to do it. Everybody's had their piece. If there's anything else, now's the time.
Sure. So one of the things, the discussion though was around how are they getting funds, right? And what are the funds they get? So I can't speak for how the school districts do it, but there's a toolkit, right? There's ability for them to go out for a bond for construction. And again.
That's
from us-
capital, that's capital,
Well, it
that's
is
not
capital, but I'm saying
operations.
capital expense. And then there's also, you get allocations of Title I funds, et cetera. So again, there's other fund streams other than what we talked about tonight that I think it's important to, not that we're gonna come back and decide, but I think it's important we have that idea that there's more than one way that they can get funds, or two ways.
Not for operations. They can't do a bond referendum for operations. So, all right, we'll still ask that question. We'll ask that question. Mitch, is there anybody else have one other thing they want considered? And this is gonna be a lively
I think as part of
discussion.
this process,
Yeah.
it would behoove Mitch and the county staff to educate us on what our future priorities are. I mean, when I went through it preparing for this meeting tonight, I came up with $45 million in capital projects, and that's not all of it. Not to say we can or have to do all that at one time, but if we're a council that believes that we can fund our expenditures with the
If
appreciation
you're talking about
of the
using
mill-
ED fund money, is that what, are you saying use ED fund money for capital projects for the county?
No.
Okay, well then,
But the
two
FILO,
issues are,
but the FILO money, if we're gonna take FILO dollars and give them away to the school district,
we
we're
haven't done
taking
that
dollars.
yet. I think that's part of the, is there a consensus for these topics?
Well, we did. We actually gave away $8 million of our money, and we gave them $41 million from the ED fund. So we actually
The ED
did
fund was 10% taken away
$41 million.
from all of
and
them.
$8
They would have
million.
gotten anyway. Okay, well, Mitch, we've got at least some help with us taking the next step. We're all not gonna agree on everything.
Good luck,
And-
Mitch.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well-
We'll see.
Go find us a major
Yeah.
meat packing plant to bring in too. It looks like we're gonna need it, so.
Now, this is just the council. Mitch, you can definitely have your seat, because we need to move on to the next topic. But this is for this council. Please remember, it is our responsibility that we execute the FILO. We can take input from 1,000 people, but this council is charged with structuring, divvying up the money, how this council sees fit. That's
And
our
I think
responsibility.
that's exactly what Mitch is gauging, is where each council member is on those issues, where they're willing to go, and if there's a consensus, there is. If there isn't, then we won't move that on. So, all right. Our second topic tonight is to review, I think this is worded a little bit different than how it was a month ago, but here's the topic: review the current agenda structure for clarity and efficiency, establish guidelines for public input during meetings, develop a protocol for follow-up after meetings. So if y'all will remember, several of us had some comments from the community about how can we have greater public input. Then there have been some questions of how do we address, here's what I understood were some of the comments. We had some folks stating that 2 minutes wasn't enough for them to articulate a thought. We had folks saying that they were signing up to speak on an item who they were signing other people up to do that, which was an issue. We had folks signing up who maybe didn't reside here who were speaking. Also, we had folks who came to the meeting to talk about an item on the agenda that we were actually voting on, and they weren't given a chance to speak because there was a group that spoke and wanted to talk about things that weren't on the agenda. I'm just pointing out all of these things that came up. Then we had some discussion as a council that there are these comments that are happening during the public forum that we're not answering them, and that there wasn't that perhaps we needed to figure out a different way to appoint someone to talk through issues or to respond if there was information that was shared in the public forums that wasn't accurate, and or it just like we sit there and we look at them and there's no further response. So I think the discussion for us and what council was kind of looking at is there something for us to change? And should we look at addressing this, or do we want to keep things the way that it is? I'll go ahead and, you want to start with
Madam Chair,
yours?
I'll be
Sure.
glad to.
Okay.
I'll be glad to. Karen, can you pull up the slide that was put together? It was an email I sent out back in April, and I sent it to you in the body of that email that I sent you. Pretty sure it's in there. I got it right here, hopefully. Yeah, that's it. So back in August, I sent you guys an email, and then I took it today and updated it, and I sent it to Christy before our meeting tonight. She may not have had time to read it, but I sent it to her. And kind of took what we've experienced since I've joined council, and these are just suggestions, so this is just maybe a starting point for the conversation. But as we start with public comment, you have to be present to sign up. The sign-up sheet is placed on the table at 5:30 by the clerk of council or her designated representative. Number 3, if someone else signs the sheet on your behalf, you're banned from public comment for a year. Number 4, ask the sheriff's deputy to monitor sign-ups until the sheet has 15 names, or it's 550, whichever's first, and hand it to the clerk of court. So those are my 4 suggestions for public comment.
I think
The first part of public comment.
so I've seen people come, we used to take public comments at the end of the meeting, years ago. People got tired of waiting till the end of the meeting, so we moved it to the front of the meeting. I do like it at the front of the meeting. I think 2 minutes is a cram session. 3 minutes, I think, still designating the same 30 minutes. I think we can give 3 minutes and allow 10 people.
Yep.
Now, we can't accommodate, we can't put too many parameters saying that if it's on the agenda, you can't speak, and, you know, we can't please everybody with just 30 minutes. There's no way. But I do think the public will enjoy 3 minutes as a better use of time than 2 minutes. Because how many times have we sat here and people just reading so fast because they got so much to say? An extra minute will help them slow down, articulate a point. We can't, and I do like the fact that somebody needs to rebut very false information, that whether it come from the county attorney or the county manager. I don't think council needs to engage, but it will be up to the county manager or county attorney to rebut or refute any non-factual information that's put out. Because I don't think council, it'll be purely political if we say anything. And then at that point, who's gonna say it? We got 7 people.
I have that on there too.
So that could be an option for county manager or county attorney, at whatever their discretion that they want to clear up that's not factual. I think that will go a long way, because
When are you saying to have that?
if after the 30 minutes,
After.
after the 30 minutes.
Bullet point 3 touches on that,
Mhm.
that we have up to 30 minutes to
Mhm.
do exactly what you
Mhm.
just said, whether it's county council, county
I
staff,
don't think
or,
council needs to be a part of it. Just, if there's anything.
that's a good start.
Yeah.
But you wanted to say something 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. Sometimes, often,
Yeah,
it does
because
make sense
yeah,
for a
'cause I
council member
hate
to-
that for bad information to get out to the audience on YouTube, wherever it's played at, and people go on that, and we haven't had a chance, or no one, staff hadn't had a chance to refute any of that. Now, they're not gonna be able to address everything, but at least put it on staff to do it. That's what I would say, if we change anything about the meeting.
Yeah, I do like that idea. I think, you know, I think bringing it to 3 minutes would give them a little bit more buffer zone. But I think be able to respond in that manner right away, I think it's gonna go a long ways for public to have more trust in us, because they're gonna be able to at least get answers back much quicker than what they're getting back now.
If it's all right, I'll just read the whole thing right quick. It won't take but a second. Is that all right? Just to hurry and get through it?
I mean, it's on the screen.
So
It's
long as
on
we
the
did.
screen.
So,
Second bullet point was is that okay? Just to run through it
I
right
mean,
quick? So we're doing
I
this
think
in
all of us can
order?
read. I don't think we need it read
Okay,
out to
that
us.
sounds good.
Donna?
It just follows a process. That's why I put it
Um,
together like this, but that's okay.
You know, I would, so starting at the top, yeah, maybe we need to move the table over here where it's more in front, because one of the things that really bothers me that's not called out on here is that there are people that sign up thinking, they just sign up thinking they're signing in to sit here, and that takes a space away from somebody else. We've had people that signed up for rezonings or public hearings. They signed up to speak, but then they spoke at the public hearing, and it took a space away from somebody that could speak during the first 15 people. So I would like to be able to clean that portion up.
So what I'm hearing, let's do this way, since we have a list out in front of us. I'm hearing, how does council feel about, number one, I do think that having someone man that table, I'm not sure you need somebody who understands the agenda, because they need to be able to answer the question. And having a time frame of 5:15 to 5:45, where there's clearly, when it's out there. So, I do think that we've had trouble in the past with folks signing other people's names up. So having someone at that table, having someone at that table to register people and to make sure that there's someone who has familiarity with the agenda at that time is, I think,
That's what I
important.
was thinking, right, if we put the table like right there.
Are you,
I think it's a great idea, and look, one of the options is we use the desk out in the lobby, which really was, I think, designed to be a customer service desk back in the day when this building was built. We used that desk when planning moved over here, and we had really good conversations with the public, and I think that could be a good space to do it. Maybe we work with a couple of our staff and train them and prepare them to do that. But I think that there's an opportunity there, and that gives another touch point for our residents to engage with us.
and some folks ask a question that doesn't require them to be on there. I do try to catch the public hearing. So what we do try to do is to make sure that if you're here for a public hearing item, that you speak at the public hearing time. And I think we
If they
should.
signed up, then they take somebody's spot.
No, what I've been doing is saying, if you signed up for something and then we ask you to wait for the public hearing, are y'all comfortable with, let's do that. Let's make sure that folks who sign up, that if they're here for a public hearing item, they should make their comments at the public hearing time. Unless there is a reason why they have to leave immediately and can't do that, I still think that probably should be the rule, because if you start leaving caveats, are you saying something, Karen? Yeah.
There is a sign out there that says you do not need to sign this sheet if you're here for a public hearing.
Yeah, but
They don't
having
read.
somebody there,
Also,
yeah.
our deputy stands, when he can, stands out there and tells people the same thing. But sometimes he does have to walk away and do other things, but there's a sheet out there and he tries as well.
On bullet point 2, I mentioned that you have a designated spot for 15 seats. So you have up to 15 seats designated on the back row for people that are going to speak. And then the first person comes up and the second person standing right behind them. So constantly you have people feeding until they're done, so we don't waste 5 minutes in between 15 people speaking. So it was just a process just to keep it flowing. And in the 15 people, someone would make sure they're here for the 2-minute public comment.
Okay, well,
not
let me
for-
throw this out here, because some of these, maybe this is a more efficient way of doing this. So we have 30 minutes that is set aside, this is in our ordinance, set aside for public forum. I think we all agree we'd like to have someone at the front desk who's familiar with the agenda to be able to help sign people in instead of them doing themselves, and also self-regulate. How does council feel about the question of, do we want to increase it to 3 minutes and reduce it to 10, or do we want to keep it at 15 and allow 2?
Try 3 and 10. Let's do it.
15 and 2. Actually, I would like 15 and 30. I'd like to
15
get-
and 30?
Yeah, I'd like to
That's
have
the
an
same.
hour's worth of talking, but,
Before the meeting?
yeah. But
You can come at
if
5.
if it's longer than 2 minutes of talking, they really should just send us an email.
They
All right,
will get those
That's just
anyway.
too much, that's just too much information.
Well,
They just need to give us the high points and then send us an email if they've got longer than that, a whole presentation or
like
something.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
I mean, try
That's
3
3
for
Because-
3 months and see how it works. And
And
if it
at 3
doesn't work,
minutes-
they're rambling, then let's go back to 2.
And at 3 minutes, there's a lot of people that get up and only talk for a minute or two. So we're cutting out 5
That's
people that
fair.
get the opportunity to speak.
That's very few only gonna talk for a minute.
I'm just trying to help to get as many people as possible to speak and not limit the
Well,
numbers.
Well, we can do a 30 at 1 minute if we want to get the quantity, but that's not
Okay.
gonna help. That's not gonna help.
Do 60 at 30 seconds.
So-
I said 2 minutes for
I'll
30
say
people.
60.
I like
Do an
going
hour.
out front to that area. I think that's very worthwhile, having trained 2 staff members or whatever to be there to sign
That's why I
up.
said the
Because
sheriff's
what that's
deputy's
gonna
here.
do is, it gets so congested out there when we have a big topic that there is infighting and everything, because they're all trying to get in there. Well, if they're signing up out there, it can be more orderly, and then people, if there's an overflow that they have to go upstairs or whatever, then they sign in and go upstairs. But I think that that is a definite nice thing to happen. And then, I'm not necessarily for the 3-minute situation, but I'm willing to give it a try on a temporary basis, see how it goes.
Yeah, I think
I
doing.
mean, we need to
We'll do-
broaden our
Well,
horizons.
well,
We'll
one
do
thing
3 and
about-
10 for the next 3 months, and
Yeah.
let's reevaluate
Give
it.
a shot. I think by having that though, if we're gonna be responding back, I think we probably
not.
have more opportunity to respond better to 10 questions than 15.
We're
I
not
have
responding.
concerns about the responses.
We're not responding.
If we choose to, because we talked
Well,
about,
Who's
I would
gonna make the
support-
decision
I
to
would support
respond?
council responding. I would support either county manager or
well,
county attorney.
Yeah.
either
it's
way,
not
but
gonna
I
be
think
us.
the
If they
point
see
is, I
fit.
think we need, if we're gonna respond, it needs to be quality response.
But here's the thing,
So let's decide on 2 and 15, or 3 and 10.
I think
It
the
doesn't-
only thing that folks need to understand is that this is in an ordinance. So we can't willy-nilly go back and forth. What we can do is we can give more flexibility. We can change the ordinance to say 30 minutes, and then that gives us the opportunity to do whatever we want. But I think we have to set some parameters, because
No doubt.
right now it says 30 minutes, 2 minutes apiece, and we can't deviate from that, but we can create some more flexibility in the ordinance if we want to give ourselves flexibility. I think the bigger question, and I'd like to go ahead and tackle this piece, so that as we're talking through issues, the thing that is important to me is I am hearing that folks who come to speak, and Greenville does this different, and I broached this subject with some council members, and folks didn't like this, but what Greenville does is they do 30 minutes at the outset for anyone who wants to speak about something that's on the agenda, and then they have 30 minutes at the end of their meeting for anyone who wants to talk about something that's not on the agenda. Some folks didn't like folks waiting that long. To me, I think no matter what we do at the outset, I think there should be some priority given to people who are there to speak about something we're actually voting on, because they're only going to have that opportunity, and if they can't speak at a public hearing, then we're voting on something and they didn't get a chance to speak. So I would suggest that we at least talk about, is there a way for us to prioritize the people who sign up for something that is on the agenda for which there is no public hearing, so that we have them here, and if there are more people that sign up than the slip allows, maybe we could either, if y'all aren't comfortable with splitting them up, agenda, non-agenda, then maybe what we end up doing is asking them after the 30 minutes to wait to do that. I'm throwing out this topic because this has come up from the community, so I'd like to hear from y'all to see where we are on that, or if you don't think that's an issue.
I would support at the end, another 30 minutes for
Oh,
whatever.
another 30 minutes at the end.
think about how many items we have on the agenda
Yeah.
that's not public hearing, and you're saying reserve that space for people. That's not going, you're still not going to satisfy everybody. We have to
No.
live with what we got and let it work, because we'll be forever chasing, well, this person didn't get to speak on this item, this person.
I mean,
We can't
last
just
time we
balloon it.
discussed one ordinance for 1 hour. And then we had the rest of the agenda to go through. I mean,
Yeah.
don't,
We're going to be chasing if we try to do it
Yeah.
that way.
Okay,
Yeah, I would
so
say-
y'all do not want to prioritize,
No.
anyone who signs up, we'll just, whoever gets there first,
Right.
we're going to do 130 minutes. Well, then we really aren't
So,
changing anything, so we
We
can
don't
just
have
leave it
to.
the way it is.
That's right, just leave it
Well,
the way
We
it
don't
is.
have to.
Well, again, I think.
but we
since-
are kind of, because if they're gonna go out front and you've got the folks out there talking to them, you know, and they wanna ask questions of somebody, there's people here all the time that have never understood how to sign up. Because like you say, they're signing up to come in here and sit down.
But the sign says what it's for.
It
This is
doesn't
not
matter,
read-
Bub.
But we can't, but see, we can't solve that for people who don't want to read a sign that's sitting in front of the list. We
I
can't.
know, but you can if you've got qualified staff and they can ask questions. I mean, we had a whole QTS situation where we had like 3 or 4 women that came that had never walked through that door before. They didn't even know what they were supposed to be doing. But if they had had somebody out there to talk to and ask questions and answer questions, then it would go for a smooth transition.
Well, that
I like that.
that doesn't require, I guess, that does not require any change in our ordinance to have somebody out there manning the form. I think we all agree that's valuable, let's do that.
That's
The
Yeah,
question is, are we going to just keep everything else the way that it is?
But what
And-
time does the sheet go out?
5:15? It goes out 5 now?
But now
So
you're gonna have a
is that
staff
whatever it is,
member.
it needs to be manned. We need to have somebody who mans it, so y'all need to speak into how you do
So
that.
Is that by ordinance?
The thing is about 5 o'clock is you're encouraging people to get here at 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock meeting to sign up on the sheet. That's why I put 5:30 down. 5:30, they stand in line, and 20 minutes later, the sheet's picked up, or when you get 15 names on it, it's picked up. So we don't have a staff member sitting there for an hour before a meeting, manning a 15.
We just need to make sure that
sign-up
people are
sheet.
gonna stand in line and not let people in line and fight to get in
Well,
line.
and that's the other thing, the complaints in the beginning was people were signing up
That's
for
where
the
the sheriff
people to
comes in. You
speak.
gotta get here at 5 and make sure they line up right. Thank you, Mark. You make sure they line up right.
Yeah.
So that's why I suggested
That's all yours,
5:30
Mike.
until 10 till 6 and pick it up.
So 5:30 in the lobby.
Yeah, I think that's good, I mean, that's fine.
I mean,
5:30?
Madam Chair, we do have
5:30.
one small.
I don't know that you're gonna be able to get 15 people to
Karen
sign up
can't
in
do that.
15
She has to be
minutes.
in F&O and-
Help me.
that's why I suggested the sheriff's deputy, because he's here
Well, I'm
anyway.
not going to be helping you in a positive way, unfortunately. You see, our ordinance is very specific. It says, for the public forum section, this section is available to the first 15 individuals who sign on behalf of themselves or an organization on the sign-up sheet provided in the entry hall outside council chambers. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, that's where it is.
That's fine.
I guess I don't understand.
So there's no time frame on
I mean, technically, that's the hall.
The front's still on.
Why is that? I don't understand why that's a problem. It doesn't put a time. I thought you were gonna tell me we went so far as to say a time.
it? Right.
I don't know.
I don't think we'll be, if
I
it's at
think-
the front, it's
So
not a
So
conflict.
maybe we have it as 5:30.
It's outside our chambers. What do you mean?
We'll just do
I
that.
guess I'm confused. Why is the problem?
Is that entry, it says the entryway.
Outside council chamber.
Well, that would be where it is now.
That's where it is now. That's where we're keeping it.
Okay. Yeah, let's leave it.
Oh, we're not sticking it out in the lobby with the.
It's
circle?
right there.
Well, I think, isn't that still considered the,
Yeah, you
Oh my
gotta come
gosh.
down the hallway.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we're,
I wish we had meeting limit rules that we can strictly follow.
All right, let's-
that's
Let's
the
be
last,
gone.
that's the
Well,
last point on that sheet on the
Let's,
screen.
let me
We'll
be
get to
clear. The only thing that council is supportive of is getting a sign-up person out there by the sign-up sheet.
Yes.
Let's do it 5:15 to 5:45.
all right.
5:15, I like
Would-
5:15.
But why 5:15? I mean, it's only 15 people.
It's
sign
kind of
up.
hard to sign 15 people up in that short of time frame.
Yeah.
If there's a line of people, we're asking them to man it.
Speak
How long
up.
it take to write, how long it take to write your name?
We're asking staff member to be out there. We want a staff
Well,
member out there for an
That's another
hour?
reason to move to
Y'all,
5:30.
Another reason to have
geez,
it
good
5:30.
Lord, we can't even do a sign-up sheet.
Yeah.
Why are we
This is a
tying,
day
why are we tying a
conversation.
staff member up at 5:15?
Because it's good customer service.
Yeah.
You're in the customer service field, and you know that that's good.
They'll get.
Come on,
they'll get
y'all.
customer
All right.
service awards.
No, but no other changes now. We
Right,
don't
just
want
leave
any other
everything-
changes.
Now, leave it at 15.
Whoever's
Just-
first, whether it's agenda or non-agenda, you lose out. All right.
But,
That
Hold
was
on, I do have a question. No, really, she brought it up. She said, sign up a person or an organization. What is an organization? What if it's a group of people that's gonna talk? So can one person sign up multiple people?
You can't sign up nobody that's not here.
You're signing up on behalf
It
of an
says
organization.
organization.
But
It
you
kinda
gotta be part of
implies-
that organization, I would think.
Yeah, that's what it implies.
Is it defined?
Well, Give us your legal interpretation of,
Chrissy,
God.
Chrissy,
And
Chrissy.
take an organization to mean an entity,
Yes, sir.
you're signing up on
not
behalf
a,
of
not a
the-
group
I have a
of folks who
little
are there
question.
on the same issue.
Okay, just making sure.
Which I don't know if we can do it or not, but our actual agenda coming out sooner in the week than latter, and the weekend coming in, and you can't get in touch with a lot of people and whatnot on items on there.
That's another topic for, I'm sure,
Is that possible?
I think we can talk through that. That's not something we've got on the agenda right
Yeah,
now.
it's
Let's,
not on
let's
the
circle
agenda.
back on that one.
Yeah,
We're
but
talking
that's a
about
good
public
suggestion.
comment.
Yeah, it's a good.
We'll come back to it.
Anything else on
Later.
public comment?
Protocol,
Y'all can't make
protocol
y'all's
for
mind up
community
on
follow-up?
15 minutes, that's why.
No, just leave it, I guess at 15 minutes.
At this point,
15 people.
the only suggestion that I heard is that since we're leaving it agenda and non-agenda, any of those topics, with agenda comments, we will get an opportunity to address that. So there's really no point in having someone address that because we will have it in the agenda. Non-agenda comments would be the only time where there would need to be some response.
Are we talking about the second 30 minutes now?
No, we're not talking,
Yeah.
what do you mean? We're not even doing these additional 30 minutes. We're not doing that. We all said, apparently the group says, we don't want to do anything but one 30-minute slot like we have.
No, we're talking about a response to what is brought up in the 30-minute, 2-minute session, and there's not consensus on that yet.
Okay, because we haven't. So the suggestion is from Mr. Huckabee that we keep the 30 minutes for the community and that we then allow another 30 minutes for council to respond
No.
or someone else to respond.
Well, strike
It should
council,
be
there
30.
could be up
Staff
to
will lead.
30 minutes, staff and a representative. Strike council then. Some point in time in the future, you want
Well,
to have council, head council.
I definitely don't think we need 30 minutes
No,
for
not 30
anybody
minutes.
to
No,
respond
not
to
30.
anything.
It's up to 30, but go to 15. Just come up
No,
with something so we can respond to what we're hear, or staff can respond to what we're hearing, so we can get the truth out on something, if in fact it needs to be corrected.
I don't think we
who's
need
going
a
to
time.
tell staff to answer a question?
Yeah. I think it's staff discretion. If they hear something that's
There you go.
grossly false, it's on them. If they don't want it could be a meeting, they don't respond to anything.
But they're not the ones that
move
have concerns about it. We're up here
That's
saying
right.
we don't like.
No.
And we've had
being said
council
out
members
there.
try to do it and get out in front of it. So at this point, if it's an agenda item, we don't need to do anything about that because it comes up in the agenda. If it is a non-agenda comment, what we're saying is leave it up to management or staff. If they want to respond, that's really not addressing what council's concern was, but
So the reason this came up was
This is-
because when we get to, well, people are coming to speak on topics that happened months ago sometimes. And so you've had a chance between meetings, the last meeting you heard it, this meeting you heard it, and staff could respond if we chose to, so that we're addressing it head on. Because what happens is the citizens leave and they don't hear any discussion later in the meeting typically. They're definitely not going to hear it in non-agenda at the end. But it's really the will of council whether you want the opportunity to have a response after it or not.
I think you should get the name and email from that person. If you want to respond to their problems, respond to it after the meeting. Because here's what's going to happen. All right, let's say we respond to one. I'm going to go real broad. Please don't hold it against me. Let's say we have one person that tells a lie, and we respond to that particular lie, but then there's another more obscure lie or something, and we don't respond to that one. Does that make that lie now the truth because we responded to one, didn't respond to the other?
Why don't we
I don't,
leave- why don't we
I want to
leave
leave
it-
it alone.
Why don't we leave it like this? We have a non-agenda comment section that we all have.
that.
So why don't we just, if we choose to use that as our non-agenda topic, then that's our choice. So let's just do it there.
I can go with that.
all right, so we have not changed anything on public comment other than having someone outside to help them. Any, Watts, you have some other ideas here that council has not considered. Do you want to raise them?
Yeah, sure, be glad to. I just was mentioning that they have a assigned place to sit so that they can come up orderly and quickly and really get it done in 30 minutes, person speaking, somebody standing behind them. Also, whoever's sitting in the designated seats would know that they're here to talk about an agenda item. That can be explained to them. The second section had to do with the response, given up to 30 minutes for us to respond to something that was said in public comment, to kind of give the different perspectives so that something doesn't go into the media, but we've already covered that one. Y'all don't want to do that, that's fine. Public hearing, I've just kind of outlined a suggestion on a group that might be coming in to present on behalf of a company, creating some timeframes for them, and also creating timeframes for the citizens to speak as well in the public hearing, for and against.
And real quick, just on public hearings, I do think, and in talking with staff, there could be potential to improve the public hearing process, if that's something you all want to assign to committee. Giving the applicant time to talk earlier in the conversation, giving y'all time to ask the applicants questions before the public talk. We think that there's a good opportunity to improve the flow of information so y'all can make a more informed decision. That might be something we consider if y'all want to at a later date or tonight, but there's room for growth and improvement there.
That'd be good to refer. Last item was consider holding executive session, if not before every meeting, but maybe one meeting a month from 4:30 to 5:40, and also ending meetings by 9:30. So no matter where we are in a meeting, we end at 9:30. And part of this has to do with our staff being here. We're sometimes we're here at 11:30 at night. Most of our meetings, we have attorneys that are participating in these meetings, and if our taxpayers knew we were paying these attorneys to be on the clock at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 o'clock traveling back to Columbia, you'd have a heart attack knowing, I would have a heart attack knowing what we were getting charged for that. So there could be a better way for us to put some parameters around what we're getting done and putting a little pressure on us to get in and get out. And there are other school districts, municipalities, and counties that have these types of guardrails for meetings. Might be something that we ask staff, like you just suggested a second ago, with public hearing, we ask staff to research this and come back with some suggestions.
I don't like the 5:30 or before, because I work. I'm in a rush to get home, to get situated, to even get here to the committee meeting at 5:30. I'm not as rushed when I have to be at 6. It's not gonna shorten the amount of time that we're gonna take, because there's no way we're gonna get an executive session in 30 minutes. And I don't see starting executive session at 5 o'clock.
That's an hour and 10 minutes, but I hear you, not 30 minutes.
Well, I can't get here at 5.
It may not work, I'm just throwing a suggestion out.
I mean, I'm just saying, I can't make it at 5.
A lot of people won't, because if they trying to get here in that time of day is when the most traffic is.
Yep. Yep. It's tough.
Any other comments on that? If there's,
I would like to put the public hearing portion, maybe go to a committee to discuss whether we can make the opportunity for discussion more efficient, especially with the applicants that are here. Sometimes I feel like they should be speaking ahead of the public hearing, or maybe after the public speaks, so that they can kind of answer some questions that were brought up. So,
Yeah.
I would be interested in seeing maybe some different options. If it's not already written in an ordinance that we have to do a whole lot
support
of
that.
changes for.
Yeah, I
I thought
support.
we already had them speaking in the beginning.
the way we
Let's make
typically do
it the
public
form.
hearings, the way we typically do public hearings is to hear from staff. I mean, if what y'all are saying is allow the applicant to be up there to answer questions from council, fine. If we're adding more presentation, y'all are talking about trying to shorten meetings. The way we shorten meetings is for us to be prepared and for us to cap our talking and be prepared. I don't know that you can just put an end at the meeting and say, I'm done at 9:30 when we haven't completed the business. So I don't know that we can do that. I do think with the public hearing, I don't know that we have to refer that to a committee if the question is the applicant can be up there, maybe to answer the questions from council.
I think the suggestion is send this to committee and let them present what it is they have interest in, improving the process, makes sense.
Which process?
I think the process for the public hearing. I think coming prepared is a very good point, but the other point is that we really don't have a lot of discussion on issues. We make comments. We really don't have a discussion, right? One person speaks pretty much, and then we try to end it at that point. So it's an unfortunate process that some of the conversations have to take place outside of this building, which means that only a few people are involved and others are not. So I don't know what the solution is, but being here till 11:30 at night, often, it seems to me that, yeah, it's horrible.
I agree. We need to work on that, but I don't know that,
Especially
how
when
does,
I have
how is
to
the
have-
public hearing, how is changing the public hearing going to do that? How is that going to fix that?
The last bullet point is irrelevant to the public hearing. The last bullet point just has to do with establishing some guardrails for our meetings.
I'm not interested in that last bullet point at all. The one thing I would be interested in is maybe just having a limited number of items on the agenda. But then we're just not gonna get anything done. We're just gonna have more meetings.
And we'll have more meetings.
Well, we can have more, we wanna go meet twice a month.
I think that definitely whoever
Just wanna talk
committee
about
that
it.
is that looks at public hearings, who, I don't know what committee that is, that the people that come up to speak, I think there should be a time limit on them.
Yeah. And go-
Not 2 minutes, but,
Greenville does, with their public hearings, the same way they do the public comments. 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 minutes a speaker, and it's 30 minutes for, 30 minutes against. That's it.
Hmm.
We're going to cut public, I'm not supportive of cutting public comment. Well, I think that's a major change, and we're sitting here saying that but I don't disagree that when we get to a point where folks are saying things, I guess I have a concern that we would give an applicant more time than an individual in the community. I don't support that. So I want to be clear, if y'all want to refer an item on public hearings to a committee, I think we need to understand where council majority is interested in exploring that, because I don't think we need to give a certain category of folks more time than others.
I think Tommy's just suggestion, though, about getting the agenda out sooner, it would accomplish some of this, because I don't feel good about taking time away from public. I agree with you. But I think if we had the agenda earlier, we may have time to have communications with zoning, people in zoning, so we could have our questions answered and not have to extend that time out for us to ask questions of staff or of the zoning group, whoever that's in front of us. So that would help to shorten the time frame.
So is it possible to get the agendas out by Wednesday at lunch, or?
So, look,
It's in the meetings at
Karen and I
Wednesday.
have worked hard to try to get it out earlier. I think we've shaved a day or two off of what was typical previously. It's very hard to shave even more time off with the turnaround between meetings and everybody's schedule. We can always work hard to get it out by Wednesdays, but oftentimes with the complex agendas, we're adding things on Thursday still, and things are getting added to the agenda. We can try harder. I don't know if Karen has any ideas, but that's something we can shoot for, but it depends on the actual agenda and the complexity of it. I think y'all's heads are in the right place. The earlier you get it, the better, and I think that's something we can shoot for. So I'm not disagreeing with that, but I don't know how practical it is to shave off 2 days. Maybe we can shoot for 1, but what do you think, Karen?
I do think being mindful of what's on an agenda and spreading out the public hearings so that we're not loaded up helps more than anything. And that requires folks taking a look ahead of time when things get published in the paper. I mean, I do think that's a key thing.
Can a lot of that stuff that's in the consent agenda, can we somehow make it so that that stuff doesn't have to be on the consent agenda, which would free up some time?
Well,
compiling
consent,
information?
putting it in consent helps speed the
I know,
meetings
but
up.
they have
Speed
to
the
put all of
process.
that data together and put it in a package and get it in the agenda. If we pull those things out of that, so they don't even have to come to us for something, like if it's already in the budget to do this thing, do we have to,
We still have to
We have to
vote on
approve
it.
it.
Still has to be in there.
Yeah.
still have to approve buying a fire truck, even though it's in the budget for a fire truck?
To me, that's not really what's making our items longer. The consent agenda is a matter of emotion. I mean, it's a matter of,
Putting it together takes time, that's why.
We spent a lot of time on rezoning, but that's just.
there has to be a record of
that's
the
just
expenditure.
conducive.
Yeah, it's based off of ordinance what we have to bring forward to council, so
Our
those
ordinance is
items.
very specific on a lot of these things, apparently.
Change the ordinance,
Good.
make it easier on us.
I kind of like it being consent, because then the community sees that, and a budget's too long, they don't see it. So,
Maybe it could go through the F&O committee
for,
for fire truck purchases and,
still, the council has to approve it.
vest
Yeah,
and.
but would they?
But all
council
that's in
still
the
has to
consent
change the
agenda.
ordinance.
Consent is like,
No, we can't delegate the majority responsibility to one committee. You can't
Right.
delegate
I
that.
think a perfect example of meetings going long is like what we just did the last 30 minutes. I mean, really.
Yep.
This is what
We didn't,
This is a
we
perfect
basically
example. It
didn't
really is. Yeah,
Well, we're trying to make. things
do
better,
much.
and we're finding out we can't.
yeah, this is a really.
At least we tried. All right, let's move on. Discussion regarding future workshops. I know that we have to address fire in September.
I'll say no more
Um,
workshops.
I'm starting to get there with you.
I don't know if we accomplished anything.
Hey,
So,
When we talk about things and we say we want to change it and then we don't, that's
Well, I had a
That's
suggestion on
frustrating.
workshops. Well, first of all, I think we need to put them on the calendar. Just go ahead and put them on the calendar for the rest of this year through June. And that you can always take them off, but you have the workshop on the calendar, at least it's
I thought
held.
they were.
they are.
And then the
I
second
think
thing,
Second
this is-
Tuesday?
Yeah,
They are.
Was the second
but
Tuesday?
we added a workshop today. So
well, it's a special call.
we've had 4 or 5 special called meetings. We've had.
Apparently, our
6 or
workshop in
7.
September can't go the date that we put it on there, though, because we have a council meeting, so we did have to change that. All of the rest of them are on the calendar.
And the
I think
second thing I was going to suggest is that we talk about executive session. Maybe there are a couple of items that we could cover at a workshop in executive session, so we don't have so much on the docket the night of a meeting. Spread it
Okay.
out a little bit. Because we spend a lot of time in executive session. We go in there at 8, and we come out at 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock.
It's just gonna make workshop go longer.
It might, but at least you spread it out. We get home at decent times.
I like having all
I
mine done at
think-
once.
Any other,
some of the things I've heard from y'all is trying to be focused on one big item, a workshop. I know we've tried to put multiple items on workshops, and sometimes that doesn't produce further dialogue. I know as staff, we want to give y'all more opportunity to share feedback in workshops and have conversations. I think the other thing I've heard from y'all as we've talked, the earlier you know about a topic that's going to be in a workshop, the more y'all can think about it and spend time contemplating it. For example, fire, we definitely want to have a workshop in September. David has sent out a survey so that y'all can think about it, but he can also prepare to encourage conversation at that workshop. October, we really need to have a conversation about utilities. Our rate study, draft rate study from our consultant should be done by then, and they can come and present, and we can have a deeper conversation about the utilities CIP that we've pulled together for the next 10 years, and we can digest the potential costs, but also the consultant can present. One other topic I've heard y'all talk a lot about is roads. We need to find time to talk about roads, our roads plan, and how we utilize the funds we have, and some of the impacts of some of the changes we see coming down the pike. So you start to talk about those big issues, and then things come up as you go. So I want to make sure that there's not other topics out there, because those topics will keep us busy through October, but what else do y'all want to be talking about and thinking about? And potentially, how do we work some of that into council meetings if it's a lighter agenda? That's an option too, but.
I'd like to see one of those soon. Fire and EMS, I think maybe we could take those two together, even though they're separate. I think we need to really talk, as a council, I think we need to talk about and get some direction on the comp plan that's coming up. We really do need to understand what that's going to require and get that. That's a huge thing that's coming up very soon. Talk through what that looks like, and y'all share with us. Those are two big things that I see coming up. Any other topics?
Yeah. Our data center moratorium and what we've been doing so far with the additions to the ordinance. And, excuse me, the plan is to take Tom and Jonathan's work that they've been doing to the Planning and Zoning Committee another committee meeting, and then after that, any additions you guys have, then bringing it to council, not to vote on, but to discuss all the things that we've put into it. So I don't know where that's gonna fit in.
You're looking for a response?
Well, no, I'm just saying, I don't know where that's gonna fit in.
And I think Councilmember Cloninger brings up a good point. So when things come out of committee and there's a desire for the committee to share with the full council, that could happen at a workshop, or it can happen maybe more in-depth at a council meeting as a presentation, not just an update at the end of the meeting. What we're trying to solve here is better communication between committees and the full council. And we're open to any ideas, but I think the data center moratorium is a great example of something I know y'all all want to learn about. And how do we have that back and forth, but not for a whole workshop, but regular updates. I think that's what we got to solve for. I'm not sure we have an answer yet.
I don't know, should that one go to the full council at a workshop instead of just P and Z?
It could.
Well, it's going to.
You talking about?
Just-
So we're
I'm
gonna go
gonna-
have P and Z and then the workshop and then,
Yeah.
I was just asking, I was just
Well,
making sure.
wouldn't you like to hear some of the things first and kind of mull it over, and then we take out, put in, then bring it to council? I mean, that's how a workshop works.
I know,
If you don't want it to work that way,
I
then we
think-
need to change workshops.
I think all of the council should be able to
Information.
hear the whole presentation for that, because it's a big deal.
I
Because
know
we're gonna end
that.
up, we're gonna end up,
It's gonna be
rehashing
the
it.
whole presentation,
Yeah.
but I was trying to be polite. If
okay.
you don't want me to be polite, we'll just bring it right on. Okay,
Oh,
we're not gonna bring it to P and Z. What do you want to do, Tommy?
What?
Do you want it brought to P and Z first, or do you want to just bring it to council?
I think,
This thing's gonna take a while to figure out. I think we're gonna do a lot of talking about it before it's over with.
That's what I thought. Maybe we hash out a few things in the committee before we bring it to
I
council.
think that we all need to have
Well,
input. in
yeah,
it.
the moratorium's in place for how long? 9 months?
9 months.
And the whole point is
plus-
for the committee to do some work. And
We
then
do
when
it.
y'all get to a point where you have
Y'all
some
did-
suggestions,
Y'all's input, we go back
Come
to
to
the
the council.
committee, put
Okay.
some more input.
So I had two
Sounds
items,
good.
either share it at a workshop or share it at council, and that's the trails.
Cause I think on a lot of stuff, it's just like, yeah, we've met a lot this past year, but
any,
not always clear.
yeah. I think if
Trails.
it's a big item, bringing it through the workshop so we're all informed, it would be a good idea. I think there's some work to do on that committee. Any other big topics that we need to bring up on our workshop schedule?
Updating the Trails Master Plan, updating us on the Trails Master Plan and where we are with that, because a lot's happened over the last year with Carolina Thread Trail and the municipalities' trail programs, understanding what progress has been made there. And the second one would be an update on the small area and corridor plans, whether that's at a full council or a workshop, either one. I think it would benefit all of council to hear an update on those.
Well, aren't they in the ED board is taking those up, so we don't have a update until they've done something with it, right? I'm asking you.
So there'll be
So whenever they get there.
right, we'll be bringing forward a contract for the I-77 study. There's also a Newport study that will be packaged with the comp plan bid. And so that will also be something the ED committee can speak into as well.
Yeah.
But the ED board y'all have
ED
tasked the
board's doing the
ED board
corridor
with the
stuff.
I-77
So they
stuff.
need an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I
right.
think also too, in a workshop, having readouts on RFATs, because RFATs is very, I mean, we go to the meetings, but again, not all the council members are there, and I think it'd be important to have a good reading once in a while in the workshops.
I would suggest with RFATs that be with transportation and that we follow up. My recollection is that these plans that we've already funded, that they were coming through transportation as well. We need to make sure that we keep on that. All right, we do have an executive session briefly.
It won't be brief. It won't be brief. I'm not waiting till 10 o'clock to eat.
It's gonna be brief.
Should have
Do we have a
passed
motion for
the
Yeah,
executive session?
motion, receipt of legal advice litigation
Should've passed the
update.
9:30 end of the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, we have come out of executive session. Do we have any motions?
Yes, motion to authorize the interim county attorney to move forward with the settlement agreement in bankruptcy case number 25-03084 regarding applied machinery rentals.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. All right, any less comments?
Nope.
Motion to,
So I do have one comment to the public in regards to, we have not received a 72-hour notice in regards to SilFab at this point, and we're looking at every option. And again, we will continue to stand together and work to stand with the committee on this issue. Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to,
motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it.